this.
A sigh of relief for property tax relief? It took a roller coaster compromise to get it, and we asked Governor Little what he thought of the ride. A lot of land, a lot of cows, not a whole lot of people. It's the typical eastern Oregon county now wanting to be part of Idaho. We head to the middle of the Greater Idaho movement to find out why, or why not. Another successful Treefort is in the books with the plan to put another venue on the permanent rotation. And this one has some history of its own. It wasn't without drama, but the Idaho legislature has agreed on over $100 million in property tax relief for Idahoans. It's a priority for residents, and it's been a priority for the governor as well, who vetoed the lawmakers' first attempt, only to be outdone in an override veto by both houses. But this bill wasn't necessarily a win for everybody. Critics claim it puts Idaho schools in a tough spot, and it still isn't quite clear what the actual impact will be on homeowners. Governor Little told Joe Paris the relief should be meaningful, even if he didn't quite get all what he wanted out of it.
There's new property tax relief on the way in Idaho. Republicans pushed through a package that is set to send $117 million in relief to Idahoans. Governor Brad Little originally vetoed the idea, identifying issues within the legislation that would compromise crucial transportation projects as well as funding for Idaho public defenders. Legislative maneuvers addressed those, so Little this week went from saying veto to very good. Still, he believes the original idea was a hodgepodge.
It should have been simple. It was $120 million for property tax, but it was a 25-page bill, and that's until we teased out all the problems with it. And the legislature and I have been working really hard to have an ongoing source of funds to address these critical road needs for our congestion in Idaho and particularly here in the Treasure Valley, and it jeopardized that. In essence, this week we were going to issue bonds. We couldn't have done that until I vetoed that bill, but then they fixed it later.
So is all's well that ends well, or I guess you have some
problems?
Yeah,
but it's if you don't have to watch the sausage being made is the answer.
And I know critics of the legislation are worried about this March election day that goes away. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think it's too far?
Well, I do. I mean, I said that was one of the positions, but I didn't get that. That's one of the few things that I brought up that I didn't get. But the issue is going to be, what are we going to do for one school district that has a specific problem and they need to address that problem and their patrons all agree on it and they vote for it, versus having a one solution fits all for every school district? Because we've got fast growing school districts, we got slow growing, we got districts where they got lots of commercial and retail property, we got districts where it's mainly resort property. That's why the school districts need some flexibility in how they fund their schools.
I know that folks will watch this interview this evening and they'll just say, that's great that you and the governor are talking, but at the end of the day, what does this mean for me and my family? Will we see real property loss for me?
Oh yeah.
What would you say to the people of Idaho?
Well, and it's that close to what I proposed. And also next year, Channel 7 reports on it all the time, we see the prices of houses going down. If the price of your assessed valuation of your house goes down, your property taxes are going to go around commensurate with that. So this property tax relief, on top of the other things we've done, we're paying for roads, we're paying for sewer, we're paying for water, we're adding significant more money to schools for teacher pay, for bus drivers, for insurance. All of those things your property taxes are paying for. So this $113, $120 million ongoing, plus there's all the other things we're doing, there is going to be a reduction in, unless you're in a real special area. But for the most part, everybody will get property tax relief next year.
I was going through your State of the State speech late yesterday, this morning, and it looks like to me, I mean, you've checked off a lot of the boxes. I mean, you got to be pretty pleased with this first run.
We are. It was, I won't sugarcoat it, getting overridden in a veto, but as I said, all the things I objected to, with the exception of the March date, I got.
So things look okay?
Yeah.
All right.
That's right.
So down at that State House, things are winding down and lawmakers should be done very, very soon. Could even be done today, Brian, but we'll likely find out tomorrow if they're probably going to wrap up tomorrow. If they wrap up today, then we know they're done today. But wanted to mention, we said just in our legislative segment on the 208 yesterday that there was some new legislation coming down the pike that would have kind of looked at drag shows or sexual exhibitions. Those were introduced at 8 o'clock this morning, but it was made very clear they're not going anywhere this session. They were a combination of ideas that have been floated throughout the year. So we'll probably see that again next January.
That one's not going anywhere. Any of the drag stuff's not going anywhere. The initiative bill failed today, but there was success when it comes to the human trafficking part of taking a minor across the state to get an abortion in another state. That did pass and is headed to the governor's desk.
And that was heated debate over in the Idaho House where it did pass by a comfortable margin. But yeah, the abortion trafficking set to go to the governor.
All right. Thanks, Joe. Good day for ducks. It's a phrase that can be used to describe today's weather, obviously, but it's also been a good week for those who are part of Duck Club, as in Duck Club Entertainment, the parent company of the Treefort Music Fest. And they took a big web-footed waddle forward after buying the El Cora Shrine in downtown Boise. It's part investment project and part preservation project, only made possible by a longtime partnership between the Shriners and the Treefort folks, because the building means a lot to both. Here's Andrew Bartline.
Saving for a rainy day comes in handy.
I think it was just the right timing for us. I don't think 5 years ago we would have been ready to.
It's what allowed Eric Gilbert
Yeah.
and the rest of his team behind Treefort to make their next big move, the El Cora Shrine in downtown Boise.
We were lucky to have them choose to sell it to us.
It's prime property, parked on the corner of 12th and Idaho.
Like the dirt underneath it's probably worth more than the building itself, right? So if you just look at it from a financial picture without adding the cultural side of it, a lot of people would make a different decision about what to do with it, right?
Duck Club decided to build their nest inside the existing framework. Treefort's rented the El Cora Shrine for a decade. The space hosts various concerts for the music festival, and through those years, the Shriners shared about the value of its history.
A big part of our conversation with the Shriners is we really, truly want to honor their legacy. And well, it was a horse stable that caught on fire back in the early 1900s.
If you look at the outside wall of this wall, you'll see window arches. That was the windows for the horses, so they could get air.
Bruce Drews is a Shriner.
Yeah, and then this floor was where they kept all the wagons and buggies.
Shriners bought the destroyed building. They rebuilt it within a year.
Very bittersweet having to sell it.
Because rebuilding is in the fabric of the institution, hallmarked by their hospitals across the country.
We estimate that about 26,000 Idaho kids have been Shriner kids in that 100 years.
Shriner kids. They're from families without a rainy day fund, and they face serious medical conditions. And Shriners' donations pay all the bills.
Very proud.
Sorry, Bruce.
But very proud.
We had to use this part. Because Duck Club's respect for this mission tipped the scales on the sale.
They don't build buildings like this anymore, so it's fun to repurpose old buildings too.
All to serve their purpose, to appreciate the past, to live the present, and to build the future for Boise's music scene.
Living in a town like this that is mostly newer buildings, I think it's just part of the fabric of who this community was in a later year, and I think it's important to maintain those things.
Duck Club says any concert or show at this venue will donate $1 for every ticket sold to that Shriner Hospital Fund. And while Shriners are looking for a new location of their own, they will work together to share this space in the meantime. And Bruce tells me, Brian, that the Shriners are getting older at this location specifically. I think he said the average age is about 72 years old.
Yeah.
So at that age, they're not too eager to be going downtown and trying to find parking, especially if you're going to step in a puddle the second you get out of your car. So
But they can fit a lot of those small cars into in just one single parking space. I mean, the Shriners
you
cars
probably
that they
good
drive.
one.
Yeah.
That wasn't.
Where are they going to keep those? That's the
I
question.
wish I knew that was coming. That was pretty good.
Where are they going to keep those cars now?
I didn't ask Bruce. I can
All
go
right.
ask him. I mean, they're part of the Masons, so I'm sure the Masons have space for them.
It is cool that Duck Club Entertainment's going to keep this building, I mean, keep all that stuff on the wall, keep the building as it is, as best they can.
Yeah, and try to
go forward. Yeah,
preserve and restore as well.
exactly. All right, thanks, Andrew.
just first remind everybody that what we're actually talking about is a conversation. We've been having the conversation for 2 years pretty informally, and we just want to formalize the conversation, and Oregon's interested in doing the same thing.
All right, that was Republican Representative Barbara Ehart about a month and a half ago, back in the middle of February, talking about Greater Idaho. The Greater Idaho conversation, as she talked about it, well, it's now moved into that formal phase, at least for some Idaho lawmakers. The House Joint Memorial passed the House back in February, 41-28. But is Oregon really interested in the same thing? We wanted to take this formal conversation to the center of this movement, Harney County, where 63% of voters in November of 2021 agreed to talk about moving Oregon's border, one of the first counties to do so.
They don't know how rural frontier almost we are out here.
Harney County covers more than 10,220 square miles.
I mean, we're the largest county in Oregon. We're bigger than some states.
Big in proportion, just not in population. Only about 7,500 live here.
My neighbors aren't close. Probably my favorite thing.
Which is why, for many, Harney County is seen through the window of a car. It's just a passing through part of the state. But those few who call Harney County home also call it cow country.
We have more cows than people.
And most of those people, more than half, live in Harney County's only two cities, Burns and Hines, which is where we find Tony Foster.
So why Harney County?
Who moved to Hines in the early 1990s.
It's been a great place to raise girls. We have 2 girls, 3 grandkids.
Tony's been working with upholstery almost as long as she's lived here.
If you would have caught me yesterday, you would have caught me finishing up the chair over there.
She now runs a business, recovered from what used to be a 30-acre salvage yard.
I think the deed says give or take an acre.
Does it really?
Yeah, it does.
Because back in January of 2020, things changed.
And there were some fires and salvage yards in and around the Portland area that got out of control. And after that, they just, the state, the power that be, that runs in Salem, decided that everybody should be treated exactly the same. So they took our $10,000 bond and raised it to a $100,000 bond.
Which took the Fosters' $250 a year insurance fee and increased it accordingly.
So we shut our doors as far as salvage.
But that led to other doors.
Door panels for 52 Chevy Custom Deluxe 4-door.
And Tony turned full-time.
We have customers from all over.
To upholstery.
We even have some from Idaho.
From Idaho is how Tony would like to describe herself someday. To be part of this idea of Greater Idaho.
Basically just got tired of Portland and Salem deciding that everybody needed to do the same thing. The way they do things is so much different than the eastern side of the state.
What does this movement or this idea mean to you?
Having a government that believes in the same things that we do. You're not taxed to death. We stay here. The Oregon government's just going to keep adding on the taxes, and we don't see any benefits from it.
Why not just move to Idaho?
Why? My place is paid for. We've been here for over 30 years. It's not cost effective to move. There's not a lot of people buying old salvage yards.
In the middle of Oregon.
In the middle of Oregon, in the middle of the high desert.
It was the geography.
Yeah, born and raised.
And the people.
Family is so important.
That brought Micaiah Schrader back to Burns to open her hometown barbershop.
Harney County just has something that pulls you back.
And she sees no problem with pushing away from the west side of Oregon.
Why? Because Oregon is completely separated. I think this last election proved that. 3 counties just dictated who the governor was going to be. And if you look at it, it's all of the rest of Oregon is red. And we on this side are not well heard out here by the government there. Like, they have no idea what life is out here.
Micaiah and others like her point to the Beaver State's stance on guns and drugs. Recent laws limiting the number of rounds in a magazine and lifting the criminal aspect of having a small amount of drugs on hand have left those on this side of the state feeling a little lost.
How am I supposed to teach my kids that they're not supposed to do drugs, but when they get older, there's no punishment for it?
Okay, so what about completely legalized drugs like cannabis, which brings in tens of millions of dollars a year to this side of the state?
We're doing better than some of the dispensaries in Portland because, we only have one other shop here.
Julie Batesel opened Tumbleweed Cannabis Company 6 years ago. And she says this time of the year, 80% of her clients are local.
We were surprised. Yeah, we thought it would be mostly the 20-somethings just wanting to get high. And of course, we have that. But the vast majority of our customers are people who have some kind of an ailment and they're looking for relief. Veterans with PTSD, and or people who can't sleep, or the elderly people who want something because their knees ache, or someone who has cancer and needs RSO. which is Rick Simpson oil. So we're helping people with that.
Julie says she's aware the majority of people in Harney County, including some of her clients, want to be part of Greater Idaho.
But the problem for me is it will put us out of business. And it will effectively kill the cannabis market for this area.
That's because marijuana sales and production are illegal in the Gem State. And if Greater Idaho's plan to include all of southern Idaho goes forward,
and that's where all of our outdoor flower is grown.
Most of the state's cannabis crops, Julie says, would have to go indoors.
Which indoor weed is fantastic, but it's expensive, and I think that it will fuel the black market because, you know, people are going to need their medicine, they're going to find a way to get it.
So obviously you're not in favor of Greater Idaho.
I am not. I'm not, but I understand the other side. I lived in Idaho most of my life, and so I understand where they're coming from, but I think maybe they haven't considered how many people this will affect negatively.
Yes.
Judy Irwin has.
Born and raised here.
She is another one who lived a long time in Oregon's biggest city, but recently bounced back to Burns. What do you think about this whole Greater Idaho thing?
I don't like the idea. First of all, I'm an Oregonian. I was born an Oregonian and I want to die that way. I don't think everybody's thought it through very well.
Those things that would take some thought: what to do about taxes, the minimum wage, and government jobs. Outside of ag, the county's largest employer.
So my mom works for the state. What happens to that job? She's been there almost 20 years. Oh no, she has been there 20 years. So what happens to that job?
Judy says she already sees improvement coming from Salem.
I think we are being heard now. We're starting to receive a lot more funding.
And she believes moving the border is too big of a leap.
And people have to realize we're not a big population area. And unfortunately, when people vote, it's the majority rules. And just because you're not part of the majority, you don't get to take your toys and go home.
That sentiment is shared by those who see the Greater Idaho movement as segregation.
You know, we're going to separate the liberals from the the conservatives. I think it would be better if we got to a place where we're just Americans again, and we stop trying to segregate and become you against us, or vice versa.
But for those who see the benefit of becoming Idaho, also see a benefit for Idaho.
I would say more freedom. You got land, you've got trees, more people that vote the way they do. I mean, this is a bunch of conservative people that want to stick to an old way of life. Why wouldn't Idaho want that?
What if this doesn't happen?
We'll keep fighting the good fight. It'll take a long time to shut us down. We've come a long ways. We're not ready to give up.
You know, a couple other issues to consider with this Greater Idaho: the state correctional facilities located on the eastern side of the state, of which there are 5. And of those counties who have already voted to consider this border change, they've got a lot of publicly held land. Malheur County has the most with 78%. Lake County has 77%, and Harney County, the 4th most in the state, with 75% of its land publicly owned. A vast majority of that is BLM land. So the question is, does Idaho want more federally controlled property? In doing these stories, you must point out what it's going to take. And it's going to take a lot more than just a majority vote in those counties that want it. As we've mentioned many times before, in order for Greater Idaho to become a real thing, both state legislatures have to agree to it. And so far, neither has made significant moves to do so. Then it has to get approval from the U.S. Congress. Idaho's joint memorial sits in the Senate State Affairs Committee and has been there since mid-February. Oregon's version has been stalled in their Senate Rules Committee since January. All right, let's put a bow on this Thursday show with a look at your comments for today. I wish the legislature would have put more time in the property tax bill. What happens, well, whenever there's no surplus? Once again, they put a Band-Aid on a serious issue and left schools in a bad place, says Chuck in Boise. Yes, this bill removes that March levy bond election possibility for school districts. Small Oregon towns and their populations will never give Idahoans a long-term return on their investment to absorb them. This isn't Idaho's problem, says Larry, when talking about the Greater Idaho movement to move Idaho's border westward, just to the other side, this side of Bend, Oregon, so into Deschutes County. Regarding the Greater Idaho movement, what is the bottom line? What will it cost Idaho to assimilate these Oregon counties? Will they generate revenue or be a burden to our taxpayers, asked Joan. All of those questions have yet to be answered definitively. We do not have any numbers, but there's a lot of things to consider when it comes to taxes, again, and jobs, as we mentioned, minimum wage, what's it going to cost for this land that you want to acquire as well? Somebody else brought up the point, say goodbye to your mail-in voting if you become Idaho as well. Brian, we still have the little cars, the Cameliers and the mini dune buggies. We would love to see you and Andrew in one of those, says Bruce. I would love that. I will take you up on that. The next time we see the Shriners in a parade, if Andrew and I are there, we'll jump in, give us a ride, or maybe we could take it for a spin ourselves. Good luck with the new building down there, Treefort, as well. Thanks for watching. We'll see you back here tomorrow.